All right. Hello, hello, hello. We are live with Michelle Van, where we talk about health, wealth, and spirituality. Today, we are here with Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau.
Good morning.
Welcome, 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 welcome. We are so glad that you could take time from your busy schedule to join us. We wanted to make sure that we bring you on because we really wanted to look at, this Black History Month. We'll be going into Women's History Month pretty quick. And as I have looked at your walk and watched you matriculate through this whole legislative body, it has been an amazing journey. And so I wanted to just share this with our audience so that people will get to know a little bit more about what's happening. And I think kind of right now, people haven't been paying attention, didn't pay attention in government and civics, and they are so confused about what is happening. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in the world, Senate and, kind of out of the Senate.
Well, sure, absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Michelle Van, for having me on, especially during February, Black History Month. So I serve in the Kansas Senate, and we do things a little bit differently as opposed to what people think we do. I think they compare it to what is done locally, like on the city council or the county commission. And we're only in session for 90 days. And we deal with state issues. So the laws. So right now in January, we actually introduced bills. And in February, we are debating those bills in the committee rooms. And then in March, we'll be on the Senate floor all day debating bills. We will go in on the Senate floor at 2:30 in the afternoon. We may not leave until 12 midnight because you've got 40 senators who are talking. And, so again, Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau, and I want people to know that the Faust Goudeau, I honor my mother's last name, Faust, and my father's last name, Goudeau. And I ran for office to honor my mother's deathbed wish to keep fighting for equal rights for all people. And so in 2004, I went into the Kansas Senate as the first and only Black woman to serve in the Kansas Senate, still to this day in 2025. So out of the 40 senators, it's only 2 African Americans, Senator David Haley from Kansas City, and then myself serving. And I get to be the first woman from Wichita, from the 29th district, followed by Senator Curtis, and then Rip Gooch, Billy Q. McCrae, Senator Eugene Anderson, and Senator Donald Betts. And so I'm the first woman and the first Black woman to serve in the Kansas Senate.
So as you think about that, breaking those barriers, you said that you honor your mom. Tell us a little bit about who your mom was.
Oh, absolutely. So my mother marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. She was there in the March on Washington. And locally, she created an organization called Mothers Organized Movement. And she would go to City Hall and fight for, single women and raising their children. She fought for women's rights. She fought for equal rights in voting issues. And so she was just a great advocate for the city of Wichita. And Mothers Organized Movement. It was founded with the city of Wichita in 1979. And so I just continued that advocacy of equal rights for all people. And so with us being here in February, Dr. Michelle Van, I also get the honor of being the first Black person ever in our state's history in the Kansas legislature to serve as the minority whip.
Mm.
And I also have the honor of being elected twice by my peers, serving currently as the first Black person ever in our state's history to serve as the assistant minority leader in the Kansas Senate. And so, with me being the only African American woman there serving in this position, has benefited me a little bit.
Yeah, that says a
Uh,
lot.
it allows me to get some of the bills that I've introduced, to get hearings on those bills, and then get those bills debated and
Mhm.
passed into law. Um, I actually have had, Michelle, and I don't even believe this sometimes myself, but a total of 13 bills that I've introduced have become law here in the state of Kansas. Most recently, on January 1st, 2025, the bill dealing with revoked driver's licenses became
Let's
effective.
get that when we come back. Well, let's start with that when we come back. This is Live with Michelle Van. We're talking to Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau. I can't say her. We are back. We are talking with Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau, and we ended, and you were talking about the fact that you are the minority whip. Tell us what that is, because I think people hear terms around legislation and around government, and there are terms that are kind of used, but we don't necessarily know what they mean.
Right. Dr. Michelle Van, again, I've had the honor of being elected as the first minority whip in the Kansas Senate. And during that time, and what that consists of, a whip is a person that when we are voting on bills and we want the vote to go our way,
Mm-hmm.
we will then lobby other lawmakers to get them to vote on the side of what our party would vote on,
Mm-hmm.
relating to some of the bills that we debate. Again, I am currently serving as the assistant minority leader, and I am the first Black person in Kansas history in the legislature to serve in this position.
So what
So
is that?
the assistant minority leader
Mm-hmm.
is in the Kansas Senate. You've got the president, you've
Okay.
got the vice president, you've
Mm-hmm.
got the majority leader, you've
Mm-hmm.
got the assistant, you've got the
Assistant majority.
minority leader, you've got the minority leader,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got the assistant minority leader.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the leadership in the Kansas Senate.
Okay.
And so it is our duty, my duty as the assistant minority leader, to talk and negotiate with the vice president of the Kansas Senate and to network with my minority leader when we are debating bills. We also negotiate or have conversations with the governor,
Mm-hmm.
whoever that might be. Last week, we just met with Governor Laura Kelly to
Mm-hmm.
talk about the main issues that the Kansas legislature is supposed to do during our legislative session. So, like education, the
Mm-hmm.
tax bills, we must pass a state budget. And
Mm-hmm.
so I am privy to be in those conversations. And just so in if the minority leader
Mm-hmm.
isn't available, then I am the next in charge, the leadership for the Kansas Democratic members.
So just so people know, you said that there are 40 members, and
Correct.
how are those 40 members chosen? Are they divided? How are those districts divided up?
So there are 40. So in the Kansas, the state of Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
we've got 105 districts.
Okay.
And so we have a total of 40 senators
Mhm.
that represent the state of Kansas. So in my Senate district, in the 29th Senate District here in Wichita, who I'm proud to represent, I represent about 75,000 people within my
Small
Senate
town.
within my Senate district.
Yeah.
And in that Senate district, I have 5 state representatives
Hmm.
that are in my Senate district.
Okay.
So when you hear us talk about the House of Representatives, uh, and then you hear us talk about the Kansas Senate, so your 40 senators, we also represent um, those House districts within our Senate districts.
So
And
there's so the House districts are smaller and they're divided in up
yes,
underneath a Senate district.
yes. And so a House district will consist of about 20 or 25 constituents. And my Senate district, as I said, about 75 uh, uh, um, individuals or 75,000 people
Mm-hmm.
in that district. And so again, in the Senate, um, it of the 40 senators, it's a struggle sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because we only have about 13 women
Oh,
out of the 40 senators.
okay.
And of that 40 senators, we only have 2 Black state senators.
Okay.
And so, being the assistant minority leader, so out of those 40 senators, 6 people are in leadership. And I am
Mm.
honored and proud to be one of those 6 members of the 40 senators in the Kansas Senate.
That's good. That's good. That's amazing. We are at the bottom of this section, but we are talking to Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau. We are understanding government because one of the things that we have realized as we are talking to people in the community is that we don't understand how government works, which is why we're so confused these days. But we'll be right back. We are talking to Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau. We've been talking a little bit about what happens in the state capital. We are here in the state of Kansas, and every state operates a little different. The federal government operates a little bit different than the state level. The state level operates a little different than our locals and our counties. But we are trying to figure out, how does this work? So when you said that there are you operate for about 90 days, you are in the Senate for about 90 days. What happens on those off days? So the rest of the year.
So it's a little different for each individual. The majority of your lawmakers will go back home and work their regular jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our Kansas legislature is in session during the winter months
Mm.
because the state of Kansas, um, it's a farm land, and so the farmers who serve in the Kansas legislature, they need to go back home in the summertime and
Mm-hmm.
man their crops.
Mm-hmm.
And so some will do that. Now, myself, I serve on 4 state boards. And also, since I'm the ranking member
Mm-hmm.
on the Senate Federal and State Affairs Committee, and they're on the ranking member on the Joint Committee on Rules and Regulations for all state agencies, and I'm the ranking member on the Senate Local Government Committee. So some of us, the Joint Committee on Rules and Regs, we meet all year because
Mm.
all of the bills that are being passed into law through those state agencies, those state agencies, those secretaries must come before the Joint Committee on Rules and Regulations
Mm-hmm.
to tell us how they are implementing those new laws.
Mm.
So I'm in Topeka quite a bit. A lot of times people they will miss me at an event here in Wichita, and they'll say, "Oh, I missed you. Where were you at?" And they assume because the legislature is out of session that I am. But
Right.
in my leadership position, still in Topeka quite a bit
Mhm.
on state board meetings or some of the joint committees that we serve on. A joint committee will meet during the off season so
Mhm.
that we can hear about issues that are going on in the communities
So
and in
you're
the
hearing from the
state.
people, or you're hearing from representatives that are coming from the cities?
No, we're hearing from the people
Mm.
and we are hearing from experts
Hmm.
in those, say, let's take foster care issues.
Okay.
So we are now hearing from foster parents. We're hearing from foster children.
Hmm.
We are hearing from the Department of Children and Family Services. We are
Hmm.
hearing from contractors.
Hmm.
So then, with the information that we hear, the committee will come together and introduce a bill
Okay.
to try to help address those issues. And so we call that an interim committee meeting
Hmm.
where we only meet a couple of days.
Okay.
And then we formulate a bill for the upcoming legislative session.
So then those bills that are coming from the Senate are generally will have an SB. So they'll be SB whatever. And
Right.
as those bills come about, and I just want to clear this because I want people to understand how this works. So as those bills come about, they are, you're having these conversations, you create the bill, then what happens?
So I'll use this for an example. So over the summer, the My Wichita VA board, a
Mm-hmm.
board that is comprised of a couple of state uh, lawmakers, a couple of city council people from city of Wichita,
Mm-hmm.
county commissioner, and from McConnell Air Force Base,
Mm-hmm.
and a representative from Senator Jerry Moran's office. So
Mm-hmm.
I serve on that board locally, the
Mm-hmm.
My VA board. And one of the committees that I'm on, the subcommittee, is to help with homeless veterans.
Right.
Okay. And so what we found is in order for a veteran to even get a identification card, it's hard to get a birth certificate
Mm-hmm.
to get that identification card. So I introduced a bill for them this session, and it is Senate Bill 106.
Mm-hmm.
So I introduced that bill in February or
Mm-hmm.
in January, I'm sorry. And I introduced that bill in my Senate Federal and State Affairs Committee. And then that bill, because of the nature of it, it will be assigned to a committee that deals with that topic. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was assigned to the Special Select Committee on Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
And so now, if you want that bill heard, I've got to lobby that chairperson of that committee and say, would you please give me a hearing? And
Mm-hmm.
then the members of the Wichita My VA board, they are already currently emailing and
Okay.
calling and asking that chairman of that committee to hold a hearing. And if he says yes, then that's when I'll have people come up and testify in
Mm-hmm.
favor of the bill. But then we've got to hope that the 9 senators on
Mm-hmm.
that committee will vote to pass the bill out of committee. And if they do that, then that process has to happen over in the House of Representatives.
The same
And
way.
then and
Mm-hmm.
then it goes to the House and Senate floors for debate. Then
Okay.
if it passes, then it goes to the governor's desk and it becomes law. And we've got to do all that in 90 days.
Right. All right.
And
We are live with Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau. We're getting a lesson in government because I think we need to make sure that we understand exactly what is going on and how the people that we have elected are helping us and serving us. And we will be right back. We are talking with Senator Oletha Faust Goudeau. This is we have been having a good civics lesson about how the Kansas Senate works. Now, when you have people come and testify, I think one of the
Mhm.
things that I really want to make sure that people understand is that they don't actually have to come to Topeka in order to testify anymore.
Right. Uh, Dr. Van, unfortunately, with COVID, um, we are allowing people to communicate virtually.
Mm-hmm.
So um, you can testify in person, you can submit written testimony, or you can testify virtually.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I suggest to everyone, regardless of the issue that you're interested in, like President Kennedy said, it's not so much of what I can do for you, but what can you do with me for your state and to address your issues. I
Mm-hmm.
suggest that everyone uh, will go on the Kansas legislature.com. That's it. Just click on there. And then at the top, you can hover over um, the Senate members,
Mm-hmm.
committees. But I suggest that you go to the calendar of the
Mm-hmm.
day and then
Okay.
just stroll through there, and it will tell you everything that we are doing for that particular day. It will
Mm-hmm.
also give you a weekly outlook of
Oh,
the bills that we will debate in what committees. So you just stroll down. So if you go to my Federal and State Affairs Committee, it will tell you what time we meet, the
mhm.
room number, the telephone number that you would call to get on to receive that virtual link
Okay.
to weigh in and make your voice be heard. Um, and a lot of times people will say they didn't know. Well, sometimes I don't have a lot of time to let
Mm-hmm.
people know because I'm in the mix of it. It
Mm-hmm.
is real time. It's happening right then.
Right.
So you've got to have, and at the Capitol, I've got to say this, at the Capitol, in the halls, they're lobbyists.
Right. Everywhere.
They are lobbying
They're
hard
hanging
for
out.
their issue. So you've got to get your own lobbyist.
Mm-hmm.
Get some of these young people to, click on the legislature, look at that calendar, and then see what issues we're debating, whether it's tax issues. I mean, Michelle, I got to tell you, Senate Bill 4
Mm-hmm.
was just passed off the Senate floor.
Mm-hmm.
I debated my heart out because
Mm-hmm.
that was a bill that said that we would eliminate the 3-day waiting period
I
to
called and I emailed.
thank you to return your mail-in ballots, making it harder for people to vote. And Michelle, earlier in your program, you talked about the process. A
Right.
lot of people will look at what they are doing. They'll comment to me on what
Mm-hmm.
they are doing in Washington, D.C.
Right.
We need to be mindful of what's happening right here in Kansas.
Because all
And
politics is local.
absolutely, absolutely. And so um, it would have been helpful to have people weigh in on the Senate Bill 4, eliminating the 3-day grace period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hopefully, we can stop that over in the House of Representatives because they've got 125 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, totaling 165 state lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, it's, oh, and a lot of times people will wonder why I might introduce a bill for an organization and they'll
Mm-hmm.
say, well, why didn't my bill get a hearing? Well, you got 165 lawmakers introducing bills. We all introduced about 10 each
Right.
already.
Right.
And so we are up to in our 300s of, I think we're up to Senate Bill 365 now.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. And so, but it simply depends on that chairperson of that committee.
Yeah.
The majority party will make the decision on what bills are have hearings in committees,
Mhm.
and they will make the decision on what bills pass out of the Senate and House chamber and make it to the governor's desk. And that's where you come in handy.
Mhm.
That's where the people's voice is heard, by
Mm.
you sending those emails, making the phone calls, and testifying virtually. You no longer have to drive 2 hours to Topeka. Just push a button.
So it becomes important for one, for people to know who their senator and their representatives are. So you can go on that House site or on the Kansas legislator site that you just said. You can see and find out who your senator is, who your representatives are, because they're each one of us have at least how many representatives for each area.
So individually, you're going to have two. You'll have a state representative,
Okay.
and you'll have a state senator,
Okay.
and then you're going to have a United States senator, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a representative from Congress. So
Right.
you're going to have four individuals representing you on different levels.
Right. And so we want to make sure that how do they get your newsletter?
So you can go, well, you can email me at Oletha29th at AOL.com. I still have an old personal email address. Um, or you can just send me a message on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And because I send out a weekly
Mm-hmm.
electronic newsletter.
Right.
So, however, the one that comes to you in the mail, the snail mail, the hard copy, you're only going to receive that if you are registered to vote
Mm-hmm.
and if you reside in my Senate district. And again, we only have a certain allotment of money
Right.
to mail out the newsletters. And so I just put one in the mail to about 12,000 people. So hopefully, um, um, the listeners, you will be one of the ones that receive my newsletter to stay in touch with me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Senator. I appreciate you taking this time this morning to share with us and to just kind of give us a little bit of a civics lesson. Because I think, again, because people hear things that are happening on the federal level, they
Yes.
get confused as to what's federal, what's state, what's, county, what's local.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to have that time. And I know that you have some ranking and you have some spaces that you have been the first at. And so we wanted to share those during Black History Month and during Women's History Month so that people know that we are doing some amazing things. Kansas
Mhm.
was on the cutting edge when our states were being founded. And so, those things haven't really gone away. They're just a little bit more diluted and a little bit more hidden, but we are still trying to make strides in this community. And so we just want to remind people of those that are out there serving our communities well. And so this is Time with
Yes.
Michelle Van, where we talk about health, we talk about wealth, we talk about spirituality. And we want you to know that no matter what, we love you and there is nothing that you can do about it. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.